What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. How's it going today, Robert?
I'm doing well, Devin. How are you, buddy? Thanks for having me back.
Always good to have you. Quick
I
shout
haven't
out.
worn out my welcome yet. Oh, sorry.
Never, man, never. Every month you're welcome. Before I forget, quick shout out to Mr. Scott Morrison, since you especially asked for it and you're an avid follower, which I appreciate. So thank you as well.
There you go.
Robert, how the heck are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm well, Devin. Thank you for asking, bud. Cruising along here, man. Things at BRS are exciting. The group is evolving. You know, we're finally starting to work on some good new content, which is, of course, excites me. You know, it's right at my ballpark, so it's been fun to work on that stuff. Tons more to come, like all sorts of stuff in the works. Gosh, BRS TV, man.
Yeah, I'm seeing you start to do videos too now, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, totally social media focused, but still, it's fun, you know, getting back in the saddle. Literally, like a totally different approach and like production sort of process than what I'm used to. So, you know, it's new to me. It's a little scary, but at the same time, awesome because you know, pushing your boundaries makes you, you know, bigger, stronger, better person. You know, so it's good stuff.
No, awesome. Love seeing it.
Yeah, BRS TV, man, they're cruising along. Exciting stuff. Dude, Black Box video, crazy last week.
Yep.
Did you watch that? Yeah.
Oh, that was an entertaining one.
Yeah, man, that was crazy. I told Ryan he had a death wish. But you know, hey, it's good info, man. There's some solid stuff in there that, and I mean, it's stupid to ignore it, you know. Stupid. Gosh, what else? Oh, there's cool Reef Bright giveaway. So anybody go to
how do they win?
Bulk Resupply business page. There's a Reef Bright giveaway for one of the light fixtures they used during the Reef Bright videos. So that's exciting. Get yourself a nice little Reef Bright setup. Yeah, man, that's about it.
Nice.
Chugging along.
That's good. Lots of goodies. And I see you have a tank in the works too, which is good to see.
Oh yeah, that's another exciting thing. Because every month you ask me. Well, so it was when you were with Richard, man. I think you guys shamed me into it. Like
we
went
did.
Down that night. I was like, and so I built the stand and I ran into all these sort of issues, but you know, it's just a matter of charging forward, pushing past that stuff. A lot of it in the beginning was, you know, I moved, COVID hit, but now we're there, dude. Got the tank built, got plumbing sort of polished. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm stuck at plumbing, which we can talk about. But I got the sump built and, you know, like the tank plumbing. So there's that. It's every week I'm adding a little bit more, you know. Kind of stuck in the plumbing though. So I got this like big trigger sump, you know, and it fills the stand nice. And I knew it was going to happen. You know, the dimensions were there. But the filter roller comes up like, I don't know, 6 inches below the bulkhead. And it's probably not that close, like maybe 8 to 10 inches. So I got a little bit of room, but you know, as I was looking at this, I'm like, man, there is no way I'm going to be able to put PVC in there. Like I'm going to have to do all kinds of wonky, you know, 90-degree elbows and stuff. And I'm not into that. So trying to brainstorm right now, like how I can combo some flex. I really like that like spa flex type PVC stuff.
Yep, that makes it easy.
Yeah, and so what I'm thinking I can do is heat it up and sort of like shape it because it, you know, when it comes in a coil, it kind of wants to hold that coil shape. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do is try to heat it up and sort of get it to the angles that I want it, and hopefully it, you know, it sticks there and can, you know, relieve some tension and get around certain angles where, so I don't have to put a 90 on my drains, man.
Yeah. Well, I bet if you like dropped it in like a bathtub full of like super hot water and let it soak for 10-15 minutes, it'd probably soften it right up. I mean, I've done that with RO tubing, like just boil some water and dunk it in and get it on a weird shape things.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I was thinking, you know, cut it to size first. So like, then I'm only dealing with, you know, 6-inch segments and, you know, I can get in there and kind of like, okay, I need to, you know, bend it sort of 30 degrees this way and then kind of trial and error it. But I think at the end, it's going to end up looking much more polished and nicer. I won't have like elbows and a bunch of white PVC or anything under there, you know, trying to
I like
keep it nice looking. And, you know, the pipes with the IM tank are blue, Trigger Platinum Sump's blue. So kind of like have
blue and white
color thing. Yeah, color thing going on. So, yeah, looking forward to that.
I like it, man. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, excited.
Now, today, I figured a good topic would be talking about kind of coral colors, coral placement, and kind of size and shape. But a lot of people, including myself, when I first started, you don't really consider how corals grow, right? And you know, my initial input was like, oh yeah, you want your tank to look like a full-blown reef tank from day one, right? So you're in there, you're putting like a bazillion teeny tiny frags in there, but you don't leave room for stuff to grow. And
I'm all over this one, man. I like big corals.
Yeah, exactly, right? And another thing you never consider, well, most people don't, especially when you're new, is what is the growth pattern of coral? How's it going to grow? Is it going to grow up? Is it going to like table out? Is it going to block other corals? There's a lot of different considerations like that when you first start out, and even now. I
Yeah,
mean, it's years and years into it, you start to consider it more and more when you're actually placing corals.
and not easy, man. Like you literally have to keep these corals and learn how they act and what they do. I mean, there's no book out there that tells you this thing's gonna, you know a tabling acro versus like a branching acro. But that's about it. Like,
Hmm.
the whole growth rate things, fast grower, slow grower.
Yep.
All those things have to be taken into account, man, because it's super important for not only longevity of your tank, but to have it look nice in the end.
Hmm.
It's sort of a fad these days, and God, I know some people are gonna get mad, but the tank's full of frags. Like there's
Hmm.
just like you see more plug than you do coral, and it doesn't look natural.
Hmm.
It's super, and I get it, man. Like I love the bright corals, and I like the look, and the whole fluorescent aspect of that. But
Yep.
I think there's a line that you just don't need to go over. Like there's a good combo, good balance of focusing on the growth and the health and having this sort of like comprehensive picture or composition, I guess is the word,
Yep.
versus just trying to collect as many bright corals as you can and have it look like some I don't know, some psychedelic poster from the '60s.
Yeah. No. Exactly. And it's hard. It's hard not to do, especially when you're new. You want it all. Even
Yeah,
now,
and
I'm
that
still bad. Like my tank's already overcrowded. Like I'm itching to get the frag tank going so I can actually clear up some space in my tank. But I don't
yeah,
want to give up corals. But I just
yeah.
need more space for them.
Well, and it's tough too. This is the evolution side of the hobby too. It's like first tank, it's tough to do any of this.
Hmm.
It's that second and third tank, where you're like, okay, I think I'm good at this. I'm confident I can keep this thing alive for 5 years.
Hmm.
I've seen some killer tanks, some of these like German SPS tanks, and Julian Sprung's got a giant like clams and softy tanks and huge gorgonians down there, big old leathers, that kind of stuff. And those are things that just sort of evolve as you progress in the hobby.
Yeah. Now, actually, here's an interesting one. Have you had any corals in the past that you wouldn't put in a tank again because either they grow too fast or their growth pattern doesn't necessarily work for you, or?
Well, yeah, I mean Monty caps, man, like the orange Monty cap, orange is my color, man. It's like my favorite color.
Yep.
And so I think I'll stick to Setosa now, which is another fast grower, but at least
Hmm.
it gives me that bright orange and it's a little fluorescent. And I like the plating effect, and I think you can, if done right, like the spiral is super cool. But man, it takes up a lot of space. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it'll crust the rock, it'll roll over the corals, and then everything below it is shaded.
Hmm.
Um, I was into Monties for a long time, and so like putting a green, a purple, and a red cap like all next to each other, and you have this vision of like this cool multicolored spiral that never works out like that. And usually the orange one just grows over all the
Yeah,
others.
the ready one always takes over.
Yeah, and I mean you could trim it back. I suppose this is a little little bonsai effect. You could probably trim it into place and be more careful with it, but yeah, that is definitely one. I mean, aside from the obvious like, well, I don't even know. Like, see, I would put star polyps in a tank, and I would put Xenia. Xenia's probably the one that I would stay away from because you just that stuff spreads like in thin air. That's like COVID. I mean, it just like it seems like it's airborne. I've seen it literally jump gaps. So
Yeah.
like it'll be because it flows and it touches that rock, and then eventually like it'll have a
Mhm.
little booger stretch across the gap, and then you've got two tufts of Xenia. Man, I isolated that thing 6 inches away from anything else.
I know. I love it, but I've always been afraid to add it to my tanks. I've never actually put it in. But
Oh, so cool, man.
so one of my friends, I don't know how valid this is, but he had the highest point in his tank, and he claimed that it always grows upwards, not downwards. So it basically stayed on an island. So may or may not work. Your mileage may vary, but that's one thing you
I
can
mean, it's
do.
kind of smart. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to envision like all the Xenia stuff, and I don't know. It's hard for me to confirm or deny that, because
Hmm.
I've seen it completely take over tanks,
Yep.
like everything.
Exactly.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
Big, interesting experiment though, for sure.
Yeah, so Monty Caps, I would 100% agree. That's one I have not put in my tank yet. I do have one of like the worldwide grafted one of the red and green, which may or may not end up in there one day. But
Yeah.
same thing, unless you had like a big open space where it could slowly grow, but somewhere where it's not going to grow over and shade rock below it, because that will
Now,
happen.
in contradiction to that, like back to what I was saying about the bonsai effect, like
Mm-hmm.
taming these fast growing corals is kind of fun. So like
Mm-hmm.
when you're trying to create some sort of effect with maybe some green star polyps and like trimming those back and paying attention to that. Like that is a little bit nicer with these fast growers. Just like a Monty,
Mhm.
if you've got the space you want to fill and you want the ledge to come out, it's just a matter of keeping it in that place, which is often more work than
Yep.
anybody can put in.
Now, okay, so another one that's actually on counter to the whole Monty thing. I do know a
Yeah.
few reefers that will actually just mount corals on top of the Monty. So they'll just use it as a shelf and just like literally glue on like an acro on top of it
Yeah.
and let it grow above it, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it is interesting. And I've had it. I've had them grown. It was just sort of by accident, but the acro would grow at the base and the Monty sort of jets out the side. I mean, that's a very natural look. Like you'll see that on a reef for sure. Um, so yeah, I think it's cool. But then at the same time, like, are you limiting what you could do with either of those corals? Like, are you like, is the acro, pissing off the Monty because it'll turn white where it touches
Mhm.
it? Are you exposing that coral skeleton to things that it wouldn't be exposed to otherwise? I don't know. All sorts
Probably.
of questions, I guess. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go with
Trish
likely.
questions, I guess.
Yes to all.
But at the end of the day, it's we care about the way it looks, so
Exactly. Okay.
it looks nice.
Another one most people don't consider, Eflo style corals. So that's
Yeah,
basically like a
table.
tabling acro. So instead of it branching out, it literally just goes a big mat and just grows outwards.
Yeah, those are cool, cool corals. There's a neat picture floating around with unique corals. Caparata right now. He's got a giant. I think it was a reef to reef post. Got a giant Eflo. I think it's the classic purple, the green and purple one. It's just giant. I mean, it was like probably 24 inches, somewhere between 24 and 36 inches across. Giant dinner plate. It was cool.
Oh, I think I saw that photo. I just pulled up a different one quickly, but yeah. So Eflo is just so you don't know, it's an acro, but it kind of grows out like a Monty in a way, like a plating Monty, and gives you that kind of plate effect with little tiny branches on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very acro-y because it's got all the tips coming up and all the branches and coralites are shaped like an acro, but it tables out, man. It tables out.
Yeah, no, definitely does. So that's another one you got to consider, right? Because if that goes in, it's going to shade all your corals below it, and then most of them are going to brown out or die or whatever's going to happen eventually. Speedy, can Xenia kill other coral?
Huh. I had this like comment. This is a while back, but talking about I guess it wasn't Xenia, it was green star polyps. But
Hmm.
yes, I mean of course they can. They can choke them out. In terms of stinging them, I don't know that if they have the little shooters, the stingers. I'm sure they do.
It's probably,
Um,
I think it's mild if there is. It's more that they'll
yeah,
just grow over top of stuff because they can grow faster than most
yeah,
other
they just grow
things.
so fast. They take up the real estate and choke it out. Like it'll grow on top of a Monty and kill it.
Yeah.
Even an orange Monty,
Hmm.
it'll grow on top of an acro and kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the way that they do their damage.
Hmm. No, exactly. Same thing. You got to watch because certain corals will sting, and that leads into spacing your corals. I know at least when I first started, there's a frag every inch. You don't consider it growing in 6 months, a year, or 2 years from now, right? Where they're going to grow into each other. There's going to be that coral warfare.
Yeah.
And it's hard because everyone wants more and more coral, but you need to be able to give things space to grow. That's another one. So I guess really depends on the type of coral, but generally, how much space do you try and leave when you put a frag in around it for a bit of a buffer, future growth zone?
Yeah, so that's just all dependent upon the species and what I want it to do. Yeah, it's tough though because you got like a 10 pack of acrofrags, like,
Hmm.
and you got this big tank, say even just a 100 gallon tank. You're trying to fill it up. Like it's hard not to uh, want to have like your little acro garden and then have like your mushrooms down over here. But in reality, it probably is best if you sort of space that out
Hmm.
accordingly and just deal with the fact that there's these big gaps in your tank for 12, 24 months.
Yep.
It's hard to say on average, man. Like I said, I always judge it on what that particular coral is going to do, which
Hmm.
a little bit comes with experience, but you can definitely get some of that information out there. Like I said, fast growing, slow growing, that stuff's pretty well documented. Sort of the growth type or the growth formation, those things are talked about for sure.
Yep.
So I would say give it more if it's fast growing.
Yep. I think a big thing is you get a new frag, Google it, go through Google Images and just look at a bunch of photos of it in a tank Does it go outward? Does it grow upwards? Like figure out,
Oh,
does it
so many
encrust?
things. So many things boil down to planning.
Hmm.
It's your aquascape is tied into this, which is tied into your fish, and that's how you responsibly keep fish is plan for them. So everything boils down to planning for it, because the outcome is going to be all that much better. So it's like the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it.
No, it's true. And I think that in order to be successful long term and not be a current frag fest of trying to let things not kill each other, you kind of have to plan for future growth. You need to have an idea
Yeah,
of what it's going to look like, a year, 2 years from now. And that's a little bit of research to figure out, how it's going to grow into it. And you can kind of get an estimate of where you put it and which way it's going to grow out. Is this a big encruster? Is it going to go start stinging its neighbors? Is it going to grow in away from it? It's on a big deal. Big deal. Big deal. Um, are there any Planet 3D, is there any issues placing corals on the back wall? Not at all. That is actually a great space for bonus real estate. So really cool thing you could do is you can either make your own or you can buy little frag racks that look like a rock or like a little sink or a couple of frag mounts and you can magnet them on your tank. And I've seen people do it with monties and all kinds of stuff. And you have just like movable little coral shelves. So it's a great way for some like bonus real estate.
totally. Reef racks make some great ones because they're like a resin, so they're lightweight. Tunzi classically, I think, had maybe probably the first one. I'm not sure, but
Mm-hmm.
they have actually a power head rock where you can stick your power head inside it. And then they
Yep.
had like a rock mount, which is kind of neat. But it's really really heavy when you try to make them out of real rock. So
Yeah.
that's what's cool about the reef rack ones, reef racks. However, man, like once it grows over with coral in, like they'll stick to it. Like corals, what do you got?
I was laughing. I have a
Uh,
Refrax one in the tank beside me, and it's
nice.
completely overtaken by Zoas. Like you don't
Yeah.
even see the rack anymore. It's literally like there's a couple frags, and the rest is just a blanket of Zoas.
Well, that's what I was saying is like once you get some coralline on there and it's like the rough surface, like I've had pallies grow up there. I've had a Lepastria, like the Halloween ones, like a yellow
Hmm.
and or it's like an orange with a little bit of yellow in it. I've had that grow up on the wall.
Hmm.
Monty's like kind of hit the wall and then just grow up it.
Yeah, those can look kind
Um,
of cool.
yeah,
Cyphastrias can look cool too. Like Cyphastrias or the encrusting monties can do like a very cool.
Sebastian's that's like the meteor shower one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even that, like I've seen some where the whole overflow is covered. Like obviously you got to be a little more careful when it gets to your teeth because you don't want it growing in and blocking your overflow
Yes,
teeth.
I have seen that too. That's scary.
It is. But it can look really cool because it's the whole rainbow wall on the back of your tank.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen it too with like hydroids, man.
Hmm.
That's just a weird one. It's like this brown, like fuzzy mat, and when you look up close, it's like these individual little,
Really?
polyps
Huh.
essentially. Yeah, it's
Crazy.
crazy.
Um, Algae Warrior. I think it's tough because the same coral in two different tanks can look totally different depending on lighting and flow. You are correct. But generally growth will be similar. With the acceptance of Monty caps, they will in lower light they will more be flat and plating, or higher light they'll more spiral upwards. But most of the acros, a lot of it is more color. They'll still have roughly similar characteristics if they're gonna more encrust or if they're more gonna branch upwards or outwards. A lot of them, like not 100%, but you'll be able to get a good idea, which will help you plan on that one. Flow can definitely affect it too. I remember seeing
So yeah, for
one
sure.
buddy's tank where he just had constant power heads in his peninsula, and all his corals were just
Everything was
angled
pointing the
away.
one way.
Yeah, everything was pointed down to the end of the peninsula. It always cracked
I've
me up.
done that. I've actually done it and then turned the coral just because I didn't really have an option to like change the flow up in this
Yeah.
particular. Well, I think it was because of the return pump. Excuse me.
Hmm.
And so it like was like the flow had blown it all off to the left, so then I just snapped it off and turned it around, and then I got it to go the other way.
Nice. Hey, perfect. It works.
Yeah, no, it was awesome.
Bonsai reefing. All right. So, Aaron, what about the use of magnets? Any watch out? So, if you are using magnets in a tank, always want to make sure they're coated. You don't want to have like a bare magnet in there because, yeah, certain alloys are bad for your reef, obviously. Like,
Just any metal, man.
yeah,
Just keep
just
metal.
avoid metal. Yeah. So, you can get one.
You know what's? I have been curious about what they have that plasti dip stuff, which is available to everybody. It's the I've seen on TV stuff,
Mhm.
but like what other material? Like what is the right epoxy for that? I get asked all the time, and people always say plasti dip, and I said, well, man, I just buy the epoxy coated ones
That's what
because
I do too. Just pre coated. It's already in rubber.
and it's maybe 50 cents more or whatever.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it'd be neat to explore like what kind of material we can get to do that.
Yeah.
Because this time, everybody's in nano tanks and time evolves, and you have more frags available. Like
Mhm.
it just becomes more and more demand to do this kind of stuff. The magnet mounts and filling in the real estate.
No, it's true. Like the Zen Reef or whatever ones those ones are. Those are
Yeah.
cased in acrylic or resin, and yeah,
Yeah,
depends.
that's common. I think eShops does that too. So they'll tap them with acrylic.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, there's something to be said about that. I mean, it might, you have your, I'm not sure the word, but the might reduce the strength of the magnet a little bit just because you're
It
having an
will.
extra, yeah, eighth of an inch of acrylic. But at the same time, it's probably safer than an epoxy because say you have a magnet coated epoxy and you scratch it,
Hmm.
and you don't notice that and it's in your overflow. Now what? Like now you've
Yep.
got a rusty bucket. So
No, true. So definitely want to avoid that. A couple of things in the chat. Flow is also very important. 100% is. It can definitely play a role on growth. I mean, in general, it may influence which way it's going to grow more so, but it's still something to consider.
I'm excited. Ryan and Randy are working on. They got this fancy
Ooh,
new
that
flow
flow
meter.
meter. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're gonna do some cool flow tests. Um, I feel for all the powerhead manufacturers. It's gonna be a fun ride for you.
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it.
At the same time, like it's super exciting, man. I think these guys are gonna come up with some cool stuff. Flow rates have always been weird. Because gauging flow rate out of those, propeller powerhead, external, powerhead like that,
Hmm.
it's not an easy thing to do. You have your voluminous flow, laminar flow, now the gyre type flows where it sort of runs in a circle.
So they're going to do like a bit of like
Very interesting.
how they do a par map, but like a 3D kind of map, I guess, to figure out.
Yeah,
That'd be
I'm
cool.
not sure how it's going to come out, but I know they're going to do best damn job that they can. I imagine some at least 2D imaging, of like
Mhm.
flow patterns. Ryan had talked about using some dyes, so we'll be able to get like good visuals of how flow patterns
Yeah.
work. Which is, I think that's going to be enlightening, like because you can attach like these flow diagrams with
Hmm.
the pumps and you can more easily match it to your particular situation. So in and around this whole planning, your aquascape, you got your two main power heads, they're jamming down in the bottom third of your tank. It's like, man, I gotta get something across the top here.
Hmm.
Well, gyro works for that, man. You can mount it close to the surface. It's got this
Yep.
nice laminar flow. It's not going to screw up everything you got going down below. Or say you've got just like, like your eco, let's say, an MP40,
Hmm.
you've got this big space in front of your aquascape down the front,
Yep.
and you don't want power heads front and center, and you don't want a bunch of them. So you get your MP60 or MP40 and just have it blow this wide, gentle stream of water across.
That's what I did. I
Yeah.
literally have like the biggest friggin' what I could get. I had MP60 on both sides because I didn't want any pumps anywhere else in my tank. So I just have these two monsters just down the tank. So far so good.
I know, excited for that for sure.
Do. So totally forgot I was gonna ask you. Anyways, so the other big consideration when placing coral is color. At least on this tank, it's something that I've considered a lot because looking at the color of corals and trying to, if you have three green acros together, they're gonna kind of blend in, right? Or if you have a green beside a red one or a blue one, it's gonna pop more. And kind of
Sure.
using a bit of that color theory or contradictory colors to make certain colors pop out more.
Yeah, man. A lot of this is artistic stuff, just like rule of thirds in setting up your aquascape composition. Complementary colors, man. It sticks out. It's appealing to the human psyche. Like it's just one of those things that if you want a badass looking tank at the end, these things are. It's not an accident.
Yeah.
It's definitely not an accident. These things are thought about. Like green is a very popular, very common coral color. And if you went at it without thinking, you would end up with green and brown.
Yep.
Throughout the like 90% of the tank. And maybe a few little bright ones here and there. And like most of the back to just the growth rate, like you've got all these, cool small frags.
Hmm.
And all of them grow at different rates. You have this vision for the way that you want the tank to look in the end. Well, you could, say half of those things grow up and are big and fill in your tank. And now you've got all these like little medium-sized guys that you can't do anything with.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, there's my purple, there's my pink, there's, my orange and yellow, like the lighter colors, like, well, they're the slower growers, man. And you let these other ones, you let the greens outgrow them. So now you're in a pickle,
Yeah.
and you're looking at chopping things back. And so it just back to the planning, you got to be patient with it and you got to, make sure you're thinking ahead, planning ahead.
Yep. Now, as for it, now the other interesting thing, I know like all the rockscapes and everything now is almost turning more into like a bonsai style, right? Where it's not just the wall of rocks is basically dead. You know, you got cool structures or shapes, or now the whole negative spacing's kind of a big one. And with
Yeah.
your coral too, I mean, even just like bonsai in the coral, you know, how do you want this coral to look? It's like a little, you know, underwater
Yeah.
bonsai tree to a certain extent.
See, with coral, it's like I'm so thirsty for it to grow. Like it's hard to trim it back when it's not a Xenia or green star polyp. Let's just say any LPS or
Mm,
SPS, right? That is hard for me to trim, but I've done it. I've
mm,
definitely done it. And, I'll frag off and, share frags and that kind of stuff. But it's really only when it's like encroaching death. Like when it's the next step is this thing's going to die, then okay,
yeah.
I'll cut it. So coming around to that sort of approach to things can be tough.
Yeah, for me, it's more if it's going to grow into another coral, I know they're just going to fight. Oh, then I'm like, okay, then I'll frag off that branch.
See, what I do for that is I try to move them. So like you see that coming from a mile away, really. And I guess not always, but okay.
Okay.
So I just try to. So when I see it coming, it's probably a better way to
Yes.
say it.
Hmm.
Is move it.
So
So I'll take one or the other and just like, all right, dude, I got to change things up. I mean,
mhm,
have been known to go in a tank with the simple intent of moving a frag, and 3 hours later, I've re-aquascaped the entire thing because there's nothing you can do to get me to get rid of this, prism fabia, this awesome fabia. I love this damn thing. I
yeah.
don't care if it grows a centimeter a year. I'm gonna keep this till, yeah, I'm gonna keep it forever.
Tell one of you bites the dust.
Yeah, exactly. Till one of us is 6 feet under. So point being is, I will rescape the tank or rearrange things. It's like, well, if I just move this around, I can give the fabia some room. This acro can, grow up here to the left because it might be a little lower in the tank, but still have plenty of flow. It'll be fine. So those are things that I definitely do to get around it.
Hmm.
Might be a better way to look at it.
Your escape is much more modular than mine. Like half of mine are just all encrusted on, and
Well,
there's no hope of moving it.
so this is, with the the NSAs or building, that's hard to call it, the structures. So like,
Yeah.
a single structure inside your tank. That is so hard for me to imagine.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it this
Are
time
you gonna
around.
do it?
Yeah, I love the look, and I have these big, like the rocks I have they're giant, dude. They're like,
Hmm.
I don't have anything smaller than 24 inches. I have like a dead Lobophilia skeleton, which is
Yep.
like the smallest thing, and then I've got 3 giant rocks.
Hmm.
And so I'm gonna bust them up, and my tank's not that big, so yeah, I'm gonna bust them up and use this glue and see what kind of escape we can make. But I am scared for that. So like I was thinking of having. So I guess it's just like frags that you can move or like rubble mounts, but like put
Hmm.
everything on a nice chunk of rock and make it to where the escape can hold those rocks, so I can sort of move them around if I wanted to. Um,
Now
because yeah, I've never had a tank I haven't annihilated at some point and rescaped it.
this is commitment. This is gonna take a lot of planning this time.
Yeah, I'm scared.
So today's all about planning for the future. So for me, I know I have a few frags in my tank right now, you know, like mini colonies, some would call them, but they're like, you know, a couple little branches. But they're on a little frag plug because they're going in my frag tank whenever it comes eventually. So, but fish, crabs, things that keep knocking them over. Like, it's just so annoying when stuff's not glued down.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And that's why I think like maybe a baseball sized rock should do it.
Hmm.
And then what I can do is kind of like, maybe a dab of some super glue to hold that,
Hmm.
but it's not going to take much for me to just snap it off and like
Yeah. Okay.
give it over a different spot. I don't know. I might be thinking crazy. It probably wouldn't work because now I'm going to end up with too many, 20 baseballs in my tank. Um,
Or it's just
or,
going to grow off the plug and encrust and then it's there.
that's the thing too. Yeah, it'll probably grow off the plug, but I guess I'm just nervous about not having that freedom to rescape things because now you're digging into, you're losing coral or you're cutting coral, which classically is the fun thing.
Good thing we're talking about planning today. All these
Yeah,
considerations for this new tank.
definitely gets your wheels turning for sure.
Mhm. I actually built a little one the other day. Those whole just like glued a bunch of rubble together, made a cool structure just for like some
I
coffee
saw
table
that.
art. Yeah,
I was gonna say, didn't you painted some coral skeletons,
yeah,
right?
it actually was really cool. So
Yeah,
I built one last winter or fall or whatever, or
I don't
spring.
remember. I don't, the first when you texted me the other day, that was the first time I'd seen
Oh,
it.
do you? Oh, I can go
Yeah,
grab it and show you. But it turned out really good. And
nice.
I've been solicited in like all my reefing buddies, like if you get
Of
any
course.
cool skeletons, I'm like, you save them. So I've been
Yeah,
starting to paint them, and
yeah.
yeah, so it's fun.
we got to go. I call them the shop of death, but you go to like Hawaii or the Caribbean or one of these ocean vacation destinations, and there's always the shop of death. It's like the blown up puffer fish, the dried out starfish, the coral skeletons. It's like gotta go there and grab all those coral skeletons. It just drives me nuts too. Like, and I know this is an old thing, and it's probably way different now, but you still see it.
Yeah,
it's like, man, you just kill that coral just for that, just for a decoration, or even. You'll even see them for sale, like in fish stores as decorations for fish only tanks.
Terrible.
And oh god, yeah, it drives me nuts.
I don't know if that still happens, but I know back in the day it definitely did.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm thinking of one particular place in a coastal town in California. It was in Morro Bay, California. So there's probably people there that know what I'm talking about. And that was 5 years ago. So
yeah.
Definitely recent history.
Okay. Yeah, that's no good. I just solicit people that somehow weren't successful. Some are mine, some are from others.
I took us on a totally different sidetrack. I'm very sorry about
that. Here, I totally just found a photo of it. Let's see if I can pull it up. I think it turned out really cool. If you have kids or even for yourself, like super cool art project. So that was my little...
Yes, well, that got me thinking. I have some skeletons from... It's like the only... remains I have from the coral I grew before I moved, and I've got none of them. They kind of like their tips have snapped, and I haven't really like babied them, so they're not perfect looking. But I think what I could do is like find a good branch and clip it and make like a miniature one. So rather than being like, I don't know, maybe just 3 or 4 inches with like 4 or 5 little frags coming off it, like a little tiny one.
Yeah, they're fun.
I think that my kids will love it. I know my kids will love it.
Well, exactly. Like with our student, same thing. We were just out there airbrushing and painting one day. It's a fun little art project.
Awesome. Did you use the UV reactive paint?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It glows like crazy.
The picture I saw was like super bright.
Yeah, it glows like crazy under the UVs. Looks awesome. I gotta find out a little light to somehow like hide behind somewhere that kind of just like gives that color pop. Be pretty cool. But it's a good use for it, right? I mean, some people save them, throw them in a calcium reactor. Some people toss stuff after a while. I've never tossed a single one in my life. I'm like, these are too expensive. I'll find a use for them one day. So finally found a use.
Halfway decent at what we're doing. I should have sent you some pictures of my tank, so we could have talked about that earlier.
Totally should have.
I should have.
So the picture I saw, your sump just fit inside of the stand.
Yeah, I'll send you this one.
Okay.
It doesn't really show the bottom of the tank, though. I'll send it to yourself.
Yeah.
But you can kind of see the sump, and you can get an idea of how it's fitting. Actually, yes, let's talk about this, Devin, because I can spin the sump. So right now I've got the roller.
Is it a perfect square?
It is. No, I mean it's not perfect, but almost perfect.
Here,
I had to get it inch shaved off so it would fit. Okay. So the standard one I think is like 20, and I had to get it shaved down to 19 inches. But so you can kind of see there.
I'm gonna pull it up. Give me 1 sec.
Okay. And I don't know if I should spin it and have the filter roller off to the left, or just keep it in the back, because the drain connections are right there to the right of the filter roller. Right, we'll see.
Well, your main consideration is how much of a pain is it going to be to change the rolls, right?
I know, so that's why I think if I spin it and I have that roll to the left, then I'm not having to reach across it.
It's probably easiest if it's on the front side, right? Like if you 180 it or 90 degrees, I guess.
All the way around, you think? Well, just my dosing tubes would be there. I mean, my return pump would be in the front in that case.
Yeah, at the end of the day, what is easiest to maintain? Because that's...
No, I hear you, man. I mean, the rolls are super easy, and it's not like it's that big. I mean, you can reach back there. But at the same time, I think having it to the left, it would be like in the upper, like the front left corner. So the roll is like right there and accessible. That puts my return on the back left side. So it's just, a straight shot up. And then again, I still got to get these screwy drain connections, because it's basically, I don't have the luxury of, the tank is drilled, and the tank, it's got a 3-hole drain on it. So you've got primary, secondary, and then you have the backup or emergency drain. So the E drain, I'm actually just going to run into just lay that down in the sump, and then it's got 2 1-inch connections for the primary and secondary. And I think I can, if I spin it, I think I can get a nice like do 245s and then up into the bulkhead.
Is your stand extruded aluminum?
It is, yeah. So it's the APS stand, Innovative Marine. Shout out, thank you, boys. It's really cool.
It is cool. Now the question: can the side panels pop off to access the
Yes.
side?
Well, okay.
Maybe.
No. I mean, no, they can't. Not with water on it. Okay. So they use these locking joints, which is super nice. I mean, dude, you can build these things in 30 minutes. Like, this is not building a Red Sea stand. It's super awesome. They have these locking joints that are rated for I think 500 pounds a piece or something. It's like they're super strong. And it just they're pre-installed in all the profiles or all the bars, extruded aluminum bars, and you just fit it together and turn the locks, and I mean that's that, dude. That's the end of it. I did want to custom build it, like make it modular, but they told me that it's kind of tough because getting the parts, and they obviously get these things as kits, and so I just have to Frankenstein them, and it might be tough if I couldn't get what I wanted, because he said we've tried to do it, but what happens is you end up needing one particular piece, and so then you have to go like cut it or find it, or you can't find it,
Yeah, no, so true. Someone else say, yeah, I doubt you want to cut your stand, but Brian's like, spin it and cut an access panel at the end of the stand. Yeah, I doubt you want to cut it.
Okay, so the sides, so the back of the front are open, with just like a center brace in the back.
Yeah.
Now the sides, I've debated like just pulling. They've got these thin sort of plastic panels that are in the channels of the profiles or the extruded aluminum. So I can pull that out. I certainly can.
Yeah, because if it just clips in there, if you could pop it out, any maintenance would be super simple.
What I would do is like make it to where it comes on and off.
Yeah.
So I can still have the cover, have it look nice and slick, but then pull it off when I wanted to get to it.
Yeah, all depends how it attaches. But end of the day,
I'm less concerned about access, more concerned about this plumbing.
Yeah.
Being functional. I do not want to put a 90-degree elbow on that drain. I want 245s or a flex.
Easy, you got this.
Tough with that.
Bust it out this weekend. Throw some water in there. Call it a day. You're good.
You're pushing me, man. You're pushing me.
That's the plan. You're close.
No, I'll get to it. Well, and then also too, like I've got to order everything. So eat one step at a time. I've got a pretty good vision for what I want to do, so I could probably fill a shopping cart and get everything at one time. But then at the same time, like I've done this a few times, and I know nothing happens good when you move fast.
Yep.
Moving slow. So going in stages for sure.
It's true. Okay. My aquarium was asking, what do you guys think about non-plumbed reef? So basically using a standard fish tank for it.
Hang on stuff?
Yeah, or just standard. I mean, you 100% can. I've done it. Just like a little aqua clear on the back and all the heater. The biggest thing is there's no easy way to hide your equipment. Like my first reef tank was actually a 12-gallon fluval edge. So I had a thin little cobalt heater behind the rock scape, and I had a little aqua clear filter in that little chamber in the back, and you actually couldn't see much beside the power head. But that's the biggest thing, is just getting it sleeker by being able to hide stuff, and the sump just gives you more options for that. So you absolutely can do it, but you'll just have a more like polished looking tank if you have a sump, because you can hide everything below.
For sure. You get more water volume, you get stronger equipment, but it can be done. It's definitely less expensive. It's a great entryway into this. I can tell you, if you like it and you stick around, your second tank will have a sump, most likely.
Yep.
Because it's just much nicer and easier. But at the same time, man, there's great hang-on equipment. Stuff's evolved. Since I started, like we've got way better power filters, way better, hang-on skimmers. So it can certainly be done. One thing, just the biggest advice I would give you is don't overstock it. Just focus on coral, get a couple fish, just leave it at that. Be happy with your 3 or 4 fish, whatever it might be, little fish. And just pack it full of coral, man. Get used to being good at growing coral. Because that second time around, when you've saved up and you've got the sump, then you can go buku crazy with your fish. Because you've got the power to remove the waste.
No, exactly. Now, if it's just super budget tank, starting out, you got a freshwater tank, you want to try it, by all means, 100% go for it. If you're buying a new tank for that purpose, I would look at one of the all-in-ones, because it gives you that little, 4-inch chamber in the back where you can still hide everything, and then it just looks super polished or whatever. And you
still get, if you really wanted, you could put hang-on stuff on the all-in-one. So you get the nice chambers to put media. You can upgrade pumps on it, but then you can you can hang a skimmer off the back of it if you wanted, and that's going to be more powerful than any
Yeah,
of the internal ones that you could fit down inside those things. So you can boost it up. In other words, like the all-in-one
exactly.
is a great starting point, and then boosting from there is much better than I think just classic 40 breeder and putting a power filter on it.
Yep,
For sure,
exactly.
for sure.
Or just buy a used one. Done. Easy.
Yeah.
As long as there's no scratches. No
There's that.
scratches.
There's always lots of aquariums available for sale.
Very, very true. All right. So you got your new tank coming. Now I'm hopefully making you think more about coral placement.
For sure, man. I mean, I think about it a lot, dude. The aquascape is probably the next thing I'm going to do. But yeah, I gotta get this plumbing figured out. So I'll plumb it up, because after that, man, this stuff's gonna move quick. Like I've got like most of the gear that I need. I've got lighting, I've got pumps, and I want to talk about that stuff and create some content as I get into that.
Yep.
But it's kind of this not so fun stuff I gotta get through, and it's still fun, but
plumbing is still interesting.
Yeah, well, maybe you.
Hey, I've had so many people thank me about like the plumbing video I did, because I actually explained what I did through it.
Yeah.
So it's useful, right? It's all
no,
useful.
You're right. And I think too, there's probably other people in my predicament. I'm not the only one with a small stand space and wanting a big badass sump and not having a lot of room to plumb it. And maybe I'm being too much of a stickler, and I should just put the 90s and just run a slower flow, which is fine because I'll run a slow flow at the sump anyway. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm going to try this Spa Flex PVC thing. I'm going to see what I can do with that, because I'm envisioning like a combination. So obviously elbows, PVC elbows, and then running only where I need to have that sort of flexibility to, one, take pressure off the joints, but two, just to sort of get up and around the filter roller.
Yep. No, that's true. Now, yeah, it'll be so easy to spot flex. It'll be done in like half an hour. No problem.
No,
you got
you're
this.
right.
You got this. Okay.
You're right. The valves is the hard thing. Trying to figure out.
True. Okay, Tristan had a good question. So what about coral quarantine? So first question, do you quarantine your coral, or have you?
No.
Fair enough.
Never have. Yeah, I've always just been a dump it in the tank. I mean, I dip it, but I mean, that's as quarantine as it gets, is dip it. And for a long time, I didn't even know what a coral dip was too.
Yeah,
I had tons of coral. I had 2 or 3 years into it before I even had a dip or even knew what it was. However, I also have dealt with pests and I've killed some corals. So yeah, I mean, this day and age, I don't know. I really want to practice, because I've never been strict about quarantining fish either. Like I've QT'd them. I've gotten fish from people that QT. But it just seems to be something that's just, I'm going to do it this time around. So because I'm going to focus on that, ensure that I QT fish, I'm kind of into obscure fish. I think I'll probably just end up not having a space for coral in the frag tank, or no sort of isolation tank. I'm probably going to use copper and, some strong meds, and I'm not going to light it. So, I'm just not going to have a space for coral QT.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Ideal world, I mean, even if you had a tank, you could throw it in, observe them. I don't do it. It's a good idea. Most people don't, because it's more space, more tanks, more equipment. Now, on that note, I do try and dip absolutely everything. One thing that, except for deep water acros, they never fare well with dipping. I've learned is don't dip them.
Yeah, I've only had one. I think it's called Economic. It was like a blue green.
Yep,
it's got the
that's
real
blue
long coral, real long coral lights on it. Economic, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The first blue coral I think I grew next to Tubbs. The Tubbs Blue Zoos. Remember those ones?
Yeah,
Tubbs Blues.
I think I have a couple. They're
bright,
good.
Yeah, bright blue with the brown. I think that blue Econata was the first one.
Yep. Pet Mel's Life. How long do you keep corals in quarantine? So I do not quarantine them. If I did, it would probably be a couple weeks. More just observation. Make sure there's no pests on it before you do it. I generally just dips everything. Now, the only thing with dipping is most pests you'll get rid of, but if there happen to be eggs on something, that would not be killed by the dip.
Yeah, so that's the go ahead.
Yeah, so best practice would be to cut a frag off of like the frag plug. Now, not everyone does that because it's all encrusted. You just paid for some overly priced little frag, and you don't want to lose that encrusted base. So most people don't do it. But like I know some hardcore reefer buddies where they'll chop off the base and everything goes on new plugs because if there is an egg, usually it's going to be on like the base of the coral plug, or
Now,
the
something
base of
that's
the encrusting bit.
not really talked about with that, like you gotta consider the type of corals, man.
Mm-hmm.
So like what I'm gonna be keeping, gorgonians, some leathers. I'll have a clam.
Yep.
Clams are easy. Just you can just look for the snails, and I mean, I think there's a couple other things you can bring in, but really, it's pretty obvious that they have the pyramid skull. And then probably I'll have some shrooms, but like that stuff doesn't really bring much in. Like it can be on the plug. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It can be on the plug, but
lower risk.
I don't plan on having an acropora garden. Like I don't plan on having these super pricey and large giant corals that can fall victim to this kind of stuff super super quick, especially SPS corals. That's one that I would probably observe and take the most time with that and dipping and whatnot, as opposed to soft corals. LPS, the worst experience I've had with those
is the most, and they're not even bad.
Flatworms and bacterial infections. Infections you're not going to stop. I mean, douse them in an iodine dip at first, but that's the best you can do. It just seems to be random. So think about the type of coral. I would definitely look at that and consider the severity of your sort of quarantine dipping procedure based on that type of coral for sure.
Now that being said, you have less to worry about with a lot of LPS and stuff like that. Like they don't tend to get as many pests, so even a quick dip, you're probably fairly safe for the most part with them.
Yeah, and like you said, like the planaria or the red flatworms or even the ghost flatworms, like they're annoying, kind of ugly, but at the end of the day, like they're not as terrible as like red bugs or nudibranchs. The
acrolean flatworms, those buggers.
Yeah, the acrolean flatworms. Yeah,
they're nasty.
But what I'm saying is the red planaria ones that are just sort of they're super prolific and they can shade things out or cover things, but at the same time, certainly easier to deal with than a tank full of acros and, like you said, flatworms or black bugs, red bugs, any of that kind of stuff. It's you got to use pesticides to kill it.
I had monty eating nudies one time, probably from not dipping something.
Yeah, I've had those for sure.
Yeah, they're a bit of buggers, but I was sitting there looking and I had like a rainbow monty and it was just getting whiter slowly. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And eventually,
go ahead. You finish your story and I'll tell you my observation with the monties.
Okay, so yeah, it just got whiter and whiter. And I eventually went out there with a flashlight at night and I saw these little punks on there. It's like, you buggers. So they hide in the daytime when the lights are on. They only come out at night. So basically, what I did to get rid of them, I believe I actually did add like a yellow course. Someone's a pest hunter. But also every morning for like a week, I would before the lights came on, I'd be there with a flashlight, my water change hose, and I'd suck them out.
Yeah, and I've been more successful physical removal than anything. I can't say that any sort of dip practice, any of that has eradicated things 100%. It's always been in combination with some pretty obsessive removal.
Yep.
And so I was getting out with the flatworms, the monty brand or the montipora ones. They wouldn't touch my Capricornus. They would only touch like the Superman, the Rainbow,
Snobby,
Undata, like the ones the encrusting ones, the non-plating ones. That was just definitely something I observed because I had different types in the tank, and they slowly spread between the different encrusting monties. I had a big old rainbow monty that was just gorgeous on a big knob too. It had like this round knobbed rock under it. It's just awesome.
Yeah. Nice.
And they freaking went to town on the damn thing. And the same thing, I just when I saw them, dude, I'd come into work every day and just pick the crap out of them. Yeah. I even pushed the light schedule back on it, so I had like a good hour and a half to before they would come on. I did the same with Zoa eating nudibranchs.
Oh, I've had those ones too. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really cool because they look like the Zoa. Man, I was blown away. I had utter chaos Zoas or Pallies, I guess. And they were like orange and gray, like striped speckled. And I remember pulling it. I'm like, dude, that's insane. Like the exact same color. And then I had them on some rainbow Pallies. And they were like, they had like it was like a light, but they had like a green and purple. Nice. And they're mostly gray, It's like, dude,
it's neat though.
Grow these things, man.
Because
I have a tank full of these.
Colorful nudibranchs.
Moving rainbows.
But yeah, whatever they eat, they take on that zooxanthellae into their body and they become that color, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Just it's cool to see. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, even like the burgers that I have, when they're eating Aptasia,
Really?
they'll be more of a brownie color, and if they're not, they haven't
Huh.
ate much, they'll be more white. So even that, they're taking
Wow.
on the Aptasia color, which
Huh.
is kind of crazy.
I haven't heard that, but that's neat.
Hmm.
I guess yeah. I mean, nudibranchs make sense in their body structure. Not very much going on there. Just
Yep,
water and some skin.
it's true. All right, Petmo
No
life.
flesh.
Any other corals you shouldn't dip? So in my experience, deep water acros, aka like the smooth skin ones that don't really have the coralites, are more just like smooth and whatever. Those ones I find do not like dipping. Anemones in general, I don't overly dip. If I do, I just iodine's the only thing I'll use on them. I don't want to use any of the other harsher coral dips.
I won't do anything with an enemy. A clam, the others and dip a clam.
Yeah, clam I wouldn't dip.
Yeah.
Mushrooms, yeah, you could dip mushrooms. I don't really care.
Really?
My tag, trying to think.
Have you done it? I've never done it.
Yeah.
Like a Recordia or yeah.
Yeah, like
Recordia?
same thing. Like I'll be more mild. I won't use a hardcore dip.
But you're
on it.
just dipping it because you're afraid of stuff on the plug.
I'm just afraid of everything.
You're just afraid of anything.
Don't want any
Big
pests.
scaredy cat. I would what I've done with Recordia and stuff that have come in on stuff is isolate them and put some rubble in there that's, cause say they come in on a flat plug or something and I don't want that to tank. Like I'll put a layer rubble in there, put the new mushrooms down in with that rubble, and then wait till they attach to some of that rubble. Hopefully they do, and then you can pull them out, or you can. It's not that hard to at that point. Give it 4 or 5 weeks, whatever, and then they attach to the. Say they're attached to both the plug and the rubble. At that point, cut it. Then you got two.
Yep, there you go. Yeah. Okay. So basically, my logic with anemones, because I know some people say don't dip them. If people frag them, they iodine dip it just for any infection. So
yeah, that's
yeah. So that's why I'm like, okay. So iodine is still counts as kind of a coral dip, right? It's more for bacterial infections, that type of stuff, but it still works.
No, it still kills the pests. Like it'll kill big pests, just not the eggs.
Yeah.
As with most all dips are like that.
Now, if something's a fresh cut, I generally don't bother dipping unless I see like a bite mark or something on an acro, because usually the pests will be hiding on the base or something. So if you don't got a plug, because there's nothing on a base, pretty low
you
risk.
Go to Devin's house with your own shears, you go in that tank when he's not looking, and chop his Walt Disney coral, and then take it home. You're probably safe.
Good luck chopping that. It's like a tiny mound. There's no branches yet.
Yeah. Does it? I've never had one. Does it is it pretty slow growing? I think it is.
Yeah, supposedly grows fast. I had this nubby mound of it, and there's like the tiniest little branch starting, but it's still just like a little hump. Like it's, I don't know. One day maybe.
Remember, I lucked out my first acropora, and I mean it was like a tan with green tips. It was brown, It wasn't exciting. However, it grew so fast, and I patted myself on the back. I was so stoked. I'm like 3 years into this. Everybody telling me, I would just wait for SBS. They're hard, they're really hard, and I'm able to grow. So I got one, and I grew this thing into I don't know, a volleyball. It's just giant acropora in 12 months, and I was just so stoked. I'm like, oh man, I'm really good at this. This is awesome. And yeah, I realized within the following months when I got brave and started spending money on acropora that was just a very unique specimen. That was a frag from, I don't even know. Like I said, it was just a green tip. It had green tips and a brown bottom. It was a frag from a friend that had been in the hobby forever. He's like, here, use this one, or grow this one. So I'm all stoked, and then I go to buy my own frags and realize real quick that the difference between one wild caught and corals that have been cultured in an aquarium, huge difference there. But just also the difference in growth rates. Even with cultured corals versus a slow grower versus a fast grower, huge difference.
Yep, that's another good thing to talk about too. Wild caught corals are generally going to be harder to grow at first, right? Sometimes you can get gems and some amazing colors, and sometimes they'll morph into really cool stuff under aquarium lights, but they tend to be much more higher likelihood of pests and other hitchhikers on them.
Yeah.
And the other part of it is generally they're a little more sensitive and finicky because they're used to, ocean stability, not tank life. Yeah, and tons of food. Yeah. Now, I know you're doing a lot more Gorgonians and other stuff too, and same thing with those guys.
Well, that's the plan, man. Yeah. I mean, that's where I'm at right now, but
you should do it. You'll do it.
No, I'm gonna start that way for sure. I just what it evolves into. Like I said, I've never had a tank that didn't evolve. I think it's fairly natural. So we'll see, but I'm dead set on, growing a mangrove, getting this sort of coastal lagoon is what people like to call it, but I hate to
Yeah.
call it that because I'm not going to stick to like just coastal type stuff, like I'll keep things I think are neat.
Yeah, I think everyone does. There's very few that have what do they call the region specific tanks? Biotope.
Biotopes.
Yeah,
And I'm into that. I'm totally into that for sure.
it's
Uh,
cool,
but
but
it's
I'd be
hard.
like, but that
The
coral's
discipline.
pretty. It's from somewhere
Yeah, the
else.
discipline
Just
is
sneak
so
it in.
hard. I got one tank. Like if I had 10 tanks, yeah, for sure.
That's fair.
Uh, so yeah, I think I envision one day to have sort of like, this was my original plan too, just multiple tanks, sort of like in the same, on the same stand, so to speak, but 3 different tanks
hmm
with different situations set up, and they could even be essential, so like be the same water,
hmm
but just different conditions in the tank, different
Fair.
lighting conditions, different flow conditions, different fish combos of animals, I guess.
hmm
And that would be closer to like the biotope setup that I would want. But I think that's the only way I'd be satisfied is having multiples.
That's fair. Okay, Mike Horn, is there a way to add a new scape after tank's already cycled? Mainly coral, some live rock. Wondering if lack of bioload is an issue, uh, but I am limited on space. So I'd just start another tank. So if you don't have a lot of fish in the tank for the bioload, you got a lot more flexibility there. Because your live rock, your sand, all that jazz is where your good bacteria is. So if you have, a bunch of like ceramic or like the media bricks in your sump, that might basically count for the majority of your live rock. So you can go that way and you can probably change stuff up and you're probably okay. I obviously wouldn't pull all your rock out, but you could change some of it. Or you could add rock to it. Like I know like with Tonga branch scapes, for instance, some people just jam another branch in there and you can start adding new coral to it, right? Or just add a new little shelf off your aquascape. You can definitely add on to it. I wouldn't pull all your rock, and if you did pull it out, maybe just throw it in your sump so it's still in your system. That way you're not losing or shocking your system from changing the bacteria.
That's a good idea. Just throwing it in the sump.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just slow, man. Just do it gradually. It's kind of the best way. It's tough if you want to do like, you want to take your pile of rocks and turn it into like this solid NSA or solid structure, like I was talking about. I just had a guy that wanted to do that the other day, and after a little bit of back and forth, I think the best option was just put it in a Rubbermaid and cycle the dang thing.
Yeah.
You can even add sand or just get some of the biodiversity or bacteria from your tank with a little bit of sand, or even a small bit of rubble, something to transfer that same bacteria strains into the cycle bucket.
Yep.
Grow it in there, dump in some some microbacter or some Dr. Tim's or something. Let it go for 4 weeks, man. And I think you're going to be a lot better off when you make that switch, because you're going to shock. I mean, you're taking out a ton of bacteria.
Yep.
If you have sand, I think it's going to obviously be much safer or much more stable. But yeah.
Yeah. Sure. No, 100% pre-cycle it. And when you're cycling it, feed it with ammonia, like ammonium chloride, I think it is. But because you're building up the bacteria army by feeding it and making sure it can process, a ppm or 2 ppm of ammonia within 24 48 hours, like you're just help building up the bacteria, the more and quicker it can cycle it. Now, so pre-cycled, again, if you can move your existing rock, throw it in your sump for a little while, then new rock's all pre-cycled, and it's probably your best chance of success there.
I concur.
Yep. Are you aware of a website that details coral names, group types? Hard to find info because of the name.
Yes, there is.
What do you got? I'm not aware.
The coral. That's the like scientific coral ID website. Coral. Oh gosh, I feel so stupid for not remembering this. Hold on. You can't see my browser. No. All right. I will find it. But yeah, I mean, basically, it's the not Garf. That was a different one. I will find it. Yes, there's a coral database is what it is, and scientists use it.
Corals of the World, Macy's Daddy is
no,
saying?
That's a book. Reef Base, maybe? Yes, Reef Base.
Reef Base?
Yeah. This is the one.
Reef Base, global database.
I think. This doesn't look right.
Coral reefs. I think it's more about just reefs in general. I don't know if there's specific corals.
No, global region. Oh, okay. So this is the one that gives you the condition of reefs.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
I've actually been toying with that idea, which I think would be cool
they're
because
just fun. Oh gosh.
complete
I will find it. You keep talking.
all right, so complete side note. I think it would be really cool to have a big database where people can submit their own photos of said coral so you can see the different variations and color morphs and all that jazz. But also, you know, if I mean, it'll always take effort of people to grow this, but if you said, okay, here's the elk, here's the parameters I keep it at, you know, here's like the rough flow I keep it at.
You're right. It's Corals of the World, man.
Okay, Corals of the World. There you go.
Yeah,
So,
it was a book, a great book. I have it
yeah.
right there. Well, that's the marine fishes one, but Corals of the World is an amazing book, or it's a series of, I think it was a series of books. It's great books, man. And this is I want to say it's like the, you know, community sort of contributed type database to this stuff. But I would definitely go down the route of just as an advice if you're trying to figure that stuff out and research it, go down the scientific route because you can get a better understanding of not only the names and stuff, but a better understanding of where they naturally live and how, you know, how the flow should be in your tank, as opposed to just looking on a retail site where it says high flow.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but I mean, is it like reef crest high flow, or is it like 60 foot down and like insane currents all the time? You know, where it's actually getting food pushed through. So those kind of things, I think, will just help you understand the condition to produce in your tank for the best results. That's, I don't know, my advice.
Okay. Now, one parameter that no one talks about that I think is also important is like the PAR or the DLI of where you're keeping a coral. Because people will say PAR, but that's only half the story, right? You need to know the PAR. The DLI is basically your PAR times your duration averaged out. So you know how much light energy is getting. Because Robert could have 500 PAR for 4 hours, and I could have 200 PAR for 8 hours, and maybe we're getting the exact same amount of light energy, right?
You know, so the DLI thing, totally agree. However,
yes.
I get there's no reference, man. So we have.
This is why we should build one.
Okay. I think you and we argue with Terrence about this.
Maybe.
Yeah, and it's
Probably.
like I totally understand how DLI is useful, but then at the same time, without this sort of, you know, reference point, or it's like, well, like what should the DLI be for a euphilia?
That's why I think we should make a really cool coral database where people can add to it, and then we'll see what's good over time, right? You're like, oh, this looks way better at this lighting level and all that jazz. I don't know. I think it'd be really cool.
Well, and then we also need to standardize like the DLI, right? Like the way,
there's
like the number.
I'll have to make
Is there a formula? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been talking about this for like 2 years. I keep thinking about it. One day I should just like build something, make it, build it, and they shall come. Although it's only as good as the people that add data to it. So that's always the tricky part.
Oh, maybe I lied. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, Corals of the World, definitely a good one to reference. But
there was
coral.org, maybe
an Australian company that was trying to do something to like ID corals based on satellite images, but we need like a reef version of it.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, I think Corals of the World will get you a majority of the way there for sure.
All right,
I'll ask Mr. Jake. Jake links to it in his articles when he talks about new corals on Reef Builders.
Okay, coral taxonomy finder. There you go. I will search for this later because now I'm curious.
I got it. That's my note. It's reading Reef Builders articles. He always links to it.
Yeah.
Now I just have to find. Oh, great! I'm gonna search coral on Reef Builders and see what comes up. Right.
Every single article just randomly starts showing up.
Every single article.
No, exactly. Awesome. This will be a future project. I think it'll be good. This will be like the next level reef planning.
For sure.
I don't know. All right, ma'am. I think we hit her pretty good today.
Yeah, we did. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Devin, for inviting me on, and thank you everybody out there. Devin's loyal following for listening to us talk about nonsense and sense.
Perfect sense. Wonderful coral goodness.
Yeah.
All right, Robert. Thank you for coming on. As always, guys, thank you. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button if you're new. Subscribe. And if you haven't hit the like button, hit it again. All right, guys. Thanks again. And yeah, we'll catch you guys on next week's stream. Cheers.